While the Pirates have had several rough series, none matched this Brewers series in terms of sheer dominance and run differential. It's a new low point in a season already filled with struggles. That's next on Locked On Pirates.
You are Locked On Pirates, your daily Pittsburgh Pirates podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Welcome to Locked On Pirates. I'm Gary Morgan. We avoided it yesterday because we had a special guest, Eric Minshaw. Please go check out show out if you haven't already about pitching science. I thought it was fascinating. It entertains me more than complaining about the team, but to each their own. Check it out. It's out there. We have to discuss this ugly series today, though. We're also going to talk about why changing the GM probably won't be enough and a little about prospect success. Let's start with the ugly, though. Pittsburgh Pirates 33-6, 33-6 with the run differential in their recent 3-game series against the Milwaukee Brewers. Was their worst series of the 2025 season in terms of total runs allowed and margin of defeat. Here's how it compares to other notably poor series this year. I think it's the worst. This series here, August 11th through the 13th, they lost by a score of 7-1, 12-5, and 14-0 in this series. Total run differential, -27. The 14-0 loss on August 13th was their largest single game defeat of the season. They've had some other poor series. Chicago White Sox, July 18th through the 20th. They lost 9-3, 11-2, and 7-2. I'm sure many of you remember that one. It's pretty fresh. Total run differential in that one was -20. I remember that being the low point before this recent low point. They were swept by the AL worst White Sox, and that was their first sweep of the season, so it certainly felt horrible. There's probably less of an excuse for that series, but still, this one was worse, just statistically. Earlier in the season, though, the Cincinnati Reds, April 11th through 13th, they swept them 3-0, outscored them 14-5. Tampa Bay, April 1st through the 2nd, they lost 6-1 and 7-0, outscored 13-1. New York Yankees, this is again April 4th and 5th. Boy, early April was brutal, was it not? Lost 9-4 and 10-4, outscored 19-8. What makes it even worse, they used their two best starting pitchers to accomplish this feat in Milwaukee. Mitch Keller and Paul Skeens were victims in this series, and I think if they hadn't gone, you might be able to just convince yourself that you threw your weakest arms against the Brewers. What did you expect? Well, I don't think any arm really survived this team. I think the Milwaukee Brewers were just firing on all cylinders, and the Pirates didn't help situation by playing just about the worst baseball they've played since early April. What makes it even worse, I would say, besides that, was who did it and who did what. Brian Reynolds actually didn't have a terrible series. 2 home runs, 5 RBIs in Game 3. But he's actually been playing pretty well. Joey Bart finally got back on the home run sheet, hit 1 out. The bullpen allowed 15 earned runs in these 3 games. I just don't know how many other ways I can illustrate how bad it was. In Game 3, I felt like the Pirates were at least trying to come back. They did make it 6-5 at one point after Brian Reynolds' second home run and his 5th RBI. It's just the bullpen just could not hold them down. Mitch Keller looked really sharp until he didn't. Paul Skeens looked like he was going to keep Milwaukee at bay until he didn't. I mean, very, very tough series. The Brewers were just, again, a well-oiled machine, and then they made it look like it. I could sit here and just continue to be envious of Milwaukee. I am in many ways, but there's a lot of things between here and there. It's not like they've just picked good players. The important thing, I think, the most important thing to look at when you talk about Milwaukee being so drastically better than Pittsburgh is that they're only spending about like under 25 million more than the Pirates. And I mean, because believe it or not, the Pirates are spending they'll probably wind up around 90 million by the time this year is over. Milwaukee's sitting somewhere around 115, 113. It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell on purpose. It's Major League Baseball. You guys know that. But that's what I see as the reported numbers for the most part. We won't know for sure till the Forbes reports comes out at the end of the year, but that's where it looks. That's not a lot of money in Major League Baseball. If you think about that, they're paying Rhys Hoskins a decent amount of money to be here this year, and he's injured and he's not playing. An injury like that to a guy that the Pirates paid anywhere near that much, as well as I do, it would have destroyed the Pirates. The Brewers just they don't feel it. It's not like they don't have any guys that make money. They've been paying Christian Yelich for years. I think for a good stretch of time there, probably a lot of people have felt like it was a mistake to pay him because he really struggled with the bat. And to his credit, he's come roaring all the way back after getting his back issues under control and figuring out what happened to his swing. But man, not all teams are that patient. I mean, I wouldn't even advise most teams should be that patient, but they were. They don't have big money guys anywhere. And if you've watched them, they'll be very, very selective with who they decide to keep as big money players. You already saw them go out and smartly extend Churios. A good move. It locks down somebody that can actually be a star on this team once he continues developing at the major league level and stays healthy. Will they retain like William Contreras? Maybe. I mean, I can honestly tell you, maybe not. The Brewers are real good at knowing whether they need to do it or not. Like, they show that it's possible to build a decent team on a shoestring budget. And it should frustrate Pirates fans, but you know who it should really frustrate? And I don't feel it does often enough. It should frustrate Bob Nutting. It should frustrate Bob Nutting because here is a team right in your own division proving I don't have to spend an awful lot more than you to have a much better team. And to have it be a guy that you actively had on the table as an option to hire at the same time as Ben Cherington, that probably should sting too a little bit. We'll never know the full story of that. We'll never understand. Maybe Matt Arnold was like, listen, if I need 20 million, you're going to give it to me. Right? And Bob was like, oh, yeah, no. And maybe Ben Cherington was more like, I'm going to build this system so great, I don't need a penny from you outside of the norm. And that probably sounded better to him. I'm guessing how this went down. Who the hell knows? Point is, they made the decision they made, and here's the evidence on the table right in your own backyard, kicking your butt for around $20 million more in a season. I don't know what more of a neon flashing sign you could need to have in order to make changes. Okay? This series isn't the reason to make changes, but just the state of these two teams for relatively the same budget over this course of time, I would think that there's a lesson to be learned there. That's all. Fans sure have learned it. And the sad thing is, this is why Major League Baseball needs help, because the sad thing is the Brewers are going to get into the playoffs. They're probably going to at least be in the competition for the best record in baseball when we wrap this season. But be real with yourself when you get to the playoffs. Does this Milwaukee Brewers team have the star power to do what you think needs done in the playoffs? Really? The day-to-day grind of playing baseball and being good at it and winning a division and just being a good team with all these different unspectacular parts put together. That's a great concept, and it can win you a lot of ball games. We've seen it work in Tampa too. But once you actually get into the playoffs, stars never matter more. So I wonder if the Brewers have what it takes to really kick it over the edge. That said, I'm a Pirates fan. You're a Pirates fan. God, wouldn't you take what they're doing? It doesn't even matter necessarily that they don't win the championship or have playoff success. They're at least getting there. This will be 8 out of 9 seasons they've made it to the playoff with a budget that, honest to God, should make Bob Nutting blush. That's why it's so frustrating to Pirates fans. When we come back, I want to talk about how no GM can fix what the core won't. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorizations of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without even touching a spreadsheet. Do you have subscriptions that you forget that you're paying for every once in a while? Lord knows I do. Monarch Money makes sure that that doesn't happen anymore. It's super important. Don't let financial opportunities slip through your cracks. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at Monarch Money with code LOCKEDONMLB. Hey, welcome back to Locked On Pirates. Hey, make sure you hit me with a subscribe. And tomorrow, because there's no game tonight, tomorrow there's going to be an Ask Me Anything episode. So get your questions in here. I'll put some notes up on socials for you guys to float your questions in. Try to record that thing at some point tomorrow morning, and we'll have a brand new episode of Ask Me Anything. I always love that. You know that. Be a little more creative than when's the GM getting fired. I'm not going to have an answer for that. Nobody's going to have an answer for that. Let's have some fun. Let's talk about baseball players, okay? Ask questions. Let's do it. The Pirates were outscored 33-6 in Milwaukee. That's not just a bad series, that's a flashing red light. And if you're thinking a new GM is going to wave a magic wand over this roster, let me stop you right there. The harsh truth is this team, no matter who's calling the shots, plans to feature O'Neal Cruz, Brian Reynolds, Spencer Horwitz, Nick Gonzalez as everyday starters in 2026. They're not just penciled in, they're counted on to bounce back, to take a step, to lead. And I'm being generous by stopping at 4. Because let's be real, Henry Davis is going to be in that mix too, no matter how rough 2025 has been at the plate. Reynolds and Cruz are supposed to be the cornerstones. Reynolds showed up in game 3 in Milwaukee with the 2 homers and 5 RBIs, but honestly, where has that been? Where was that in April, May, June, July? Cruz, he's still chasing sliders like they insulted his family. The tools are there, but the consistency isn't. If these two don't elevate in 2026, it won't matter who's in the GM chair. You can't build a contender on a foundation that keeps cracking. Horwitz has shown flashes. He's got a contact bat, good approach. I think he'll grow into the power a little bit more, especially as the wrist continues to get further and further away from the procedure. And he's shown some power at the major league level already. So it shouldn't be a shock to think that we expect him to get back to being a 15 to 20 home run producer. That's what I expect out of him. That's what I think the Pirates expect out of him. Gonzalez has had moments. The glove and the bat both need to level up a little bit. Gonzalez in particular, I think, will again grow into more of his power. He's hitting balls to the warning track or to the wall, and as guys mature, they add more of that old man muscle that comes along when you get a little bit more developed. And I do think you'll start to see some of Nick Gonzalez's extra base hits, or at least hits that challenge the outfielder all the way up to the wall. I think you'll start seeing more of those squeak over. I think you'll see him improve with the power a little bit. That's kind of the process that you should consider following with everybody. And Davis, listen, you don't draft a catcher first overall to hit 190. He's got to figure it out. And I think that's going to have to happen this offseason. I can say I don't believe that you'll see them move on from him. First, they owe the team trying harder than that with their 1-1. Second, I don't believe they have the infrastructure to help somebody discover whatever is missing with their swing. That's on them for not having it. I'm not defending the fact that they don't have that ability. I'm just saying they don't, and they haven't shown it. And at the very least with Henry, they're not getting through. Henry's problems are so easily identifiable. And I can't imagine they're easy to fix. But when the entire league is attacking you in one way and you can't do anything to combat it the entire season because nobody does anything with your swing, it hasn't changed from the minute he came up to now in 2025. They have done absolutely nothing to help this kid be able to hit fastballs above his waist. And you have to swing at them because they're strikes. All right? If you're going to whiff on fastballs in the upper third or even upper half sometimes with Henry when he's really bad, you're never going to be a good Major League Baseball hitter. They've got to help him. Somebody's got to help him. Unfortunately, I think it's going to have to be somebody outside. So, yeah, like the GM matters, right? But it's not the fix. The fix starts with guys already here. If Cruz and Reynolds aren't stars, not just starters, then this is just spinning its wheels. I say that even like supposing that somebody comes in here and Bob feels some kind of pressure to spend money and they're able to go out and get like a good third. Let's say they go and get that really interesting looking third baseman from Japan who's going to be coming over next year. And big lefty power hitter, third baseman. Maybe that's a solution. Probably a decent amount of money and a posting fee. I'm sure there'll be competition. Blah, 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 blah. But let's just pretend that this is a big swing that Bob authorizes because he sees it's important. We've seen him do this before when we get into this territory where the Pirates really do need to get offensive help. They really needed it in an unconventional way because they couldn't afford to buy anything on the market that was actually going to help. And they went to the foreign market and bought Jung Ho Gong. And that was kind of out of nowhere at the time. Remember being surprised by that a little bit? Remember? The Pirates are in on a guy like this? Are you sure? Well, that's the sort of thing I think you might see them take a swing at. Well, that guy, he not going to be enough. Not going to be enough to change the fortunes of this baseball team. Not if O'Neal Cruz and Brian Reynolds don't come along for the. They have got to lead the charge here. Okay, like if Paul Skeens and Mitch Keller were having terrible seasons in 2025, I would be telling you that nothing's going to get better next year unless Paul Skeens and Mitch Keller are star pitchers. It's the same exact thing. These guys are supposed to be your best players. They haven't played like it. They're going to come back because they kind of have to come back. But you have to have better than them, or it won't matter what else you do anywhere else. All the holes that you left, it won't matter that you filled them. Because you still will have these two guys not hitting. That can't be. They have got to be at least better than league average players next year, or nothing matters. No smart GM is going to fix it. No trade is going to be a good idea. It's never a good idea to sell your guys at their lowest possible value, and they both are. They both are right now. You don't want to do that. You're forced into giving them another year. And they better do better, or it just won't matter. Get rid of Ben Cherington, fine. This is not like a defense of Ben Cherington or a, hey, don't bother firing the GM. It's not going to matter. No. Because the overall offensive philosophy is so bad under this GM and what this team has done, the way they instruct, even just the overall headspace they put batters in, that needs to change, if you ask me, in order to make sure that Brian Reynolds and O'Neal Cruz are better next year. So it isn't about not changing the GM. It's just changing the GM isn't going to fix everything if these two guys don't get their heads out of their asses. When we come back, I want to talk just a little bit about developing prospects in general and expectations. I think there's this overt call to bring everybody up from the minors, because how could they possibly be worse? That happens with bad teams a lot. But I'm just going to show you statistically how foolish that is. All right, hey, welcome back to Locked On Pirates. So how long does it take for prospect to make an impact? Okay? Like the time to reach the majors is really the only stat I can put on that. I can go and I can look at specific examples, and conventional wisdom tells you most players are at their best 2 or 3 seasons after they debut. It's when the league starts to make sense to them. It's when things start to catch up for them. The game slows down a bit. But the path to the majors right now, for most high school draftees, it's about 6.5 years. That's the average. For college draftees, the average is still about 4.5 years. I do think in the last 3+ years, really since COVID, and the rule changes that came in the 2021 CBA, I think you're starting to see a trend younger, a trend a little bit shorter, especially on the college draftees. You're starting to see more of a 2 to 3 season window for these high college draftees. So I do think you're starting to see a little bit of a difference. Some of the junior college draftees are a little bit gray area there. 4.5 to almost 5 years is the average. By position, unbelievably, first base is like the lowest. It's about 3.1 years people expect. Third base, 3.9. Most of the rest of them are right in that 4.5 to 5.5 year range. Left field and right field, 6.3 years. That's the high water mark. Why is that? Because if you're a left fielder or a right fielder, well, there's a really good chance they've tried very hard to make you something else for a long time first before settling on you as a left fielder or a right fielder. These numbers reflect time to debut, not time to become impactful. But that's kind of where it is. Like right now for hitters, this is 2011 to the present. First round hitters, 81% of them get at least one MLB hit. But only 22.5 reach 1,000 career hits. Second round hitters, 63.2% get at least one MLB hit. Just 8.8% reach 1,000 hits. Okay? First overall, you should expect 2.5 to 3.5 years to make it to the majors. 10th overall, 4 to 4.4. Each pick after number one adds 0.07 years to the average it takes to get here. The average time to the majors from 1981 to 2010 was 6.5 years. The average time to the majors for a high schooler from 2011 to now is still 6.5 years. It has not changed. The average time to the majors for a college player was 4.5. It's still 4.5. These new changes to the CBA have not taken hold quite yet, but you can see it trending. First round MLB debut rate used to be 73% from 81 to 2010. Now it's around 81. First round long-term impact, it used to be about 47% would have 3+ seasons. Now it's about 22.5, at least as far as the estimations go. Despite better scouting and analytics, success rates have not significantly improved. The draft remains a high-risk, high-reward process. Point is, you can call guys busts. You can freak out about whose development system stinks and whose doesn't. I really mean this. Most draft picks don't make it, especially lower round draft picks. So when you see a guy like, I don't know, Lonnie White is a good one that people love to bring up. Like, oh, there's a bust. Lonnie White's not a bust. That was a high school pick they lured away from college with a lot of athleticism. Drafted in the later round. It was a hope. But look at these numbers. You don't expect them to make it. You don't expect that. You hope for it. First rounders, you can't miss on. This team has a long history of missing on first rounders. All right. I hate to tell you this because you won't buy it, but it's true. Henry Davis is already not a bust. The way he is defensively, he will have a long career in Major League Baseball if he wants it. regardless of whether the bat ever comes along or not. And if you don't believe me, where were you when Austin Hedges was here? For real. That type of player has a future in this league. That is not a bust. It's not. Now, I know and you know that they drafted him for his bat. So they screwed up if the bat never comes along, but they still did get a major league player, and he will be. May not be here. He may not be the solution here. He's going to get another chance to be, though. And the bat has always profiled as what was going to carry him. So the fact that his glove is where it is, if anything, that shows extremely good development, right? Because defensively, he has completely turned around. Developing prospects is so much more intricate and difficult than people ever want to make it out to be. All right, even Connor Griffin right now, who's like humming along, and he's barreling towards getting promoted to the Altoona Curve. I think that's going to happen. I don't think he's going to hit too much of a roadblock there. When he gets to the major leagues, he's going to struggle. Okay, like he will hit, I'm sure. I'm sure he will get hits. I'm sure he will be a productive, professional, and good Major League Baseball player. But it'll probably be 2-3 years of Major League Baseball before Connor Griffin reaches his potential or really close to it. That is the development nobody talks about, is the development that has to happen once you're at the league. It's kind of what we've watched get stunted with O'Neal Cruz now. It's kind of what we saw completely stop and fail with Brian Hayes. It's what I think we're slowly watching with Nick Gonzalez. We're seeing a much more confident player. We're seeing a guy who's learned how to lay off of that slider. Now, if he can just learn to lay off that two-seamer riding in on his hands. But we're seeing improvement at this level. That's what you want. Development to continue at this level. Far too often we look at these prospects and we think of them as drop-in replacements. That is just not the way you should look at them. You should look at them as potential position fillers, but it's going to take some time, and you should always account for that time. You should always account for that work. And smart teams account for it by having veterans around that can help. But then you have to have that other side we talked about the other day, earlier in the week, about being able to move on from those veterans when the kids show you it's time. There's a lot missing here on this team, but like some of these overall baseball realities we miss because we're so busy wallowing in what it is to be a Pirates fan. In reality, they're not all that much worse at developing than other teams. The difference is they will never, ever pay to mask the problems they have in their system. They'll never buy what they need to prevent you from seeing what's happening at the top level of their system. You get what I mean? And when the Pirates are trying, guys, they often don't have a safety net. Other teams tend to. You know? That said, this year with Henry Davis, totally not their fault they don't have a safety net. They brought Endy back, obviously. They had that option. He got injured. They have Joey Bart here. It's not like they didn't try. Abraham Gutierrez is a decent option as far as like a safety net to continue to try. It's not like they didn't try. They had this position beefed up. Joey Bart has stunk. Gutierrez and Endy got hurt. You're going to deal with it. But Henry's not a finished product yet. And you got to just pump the brakes on trying to define guys, because let's just be real about what we're doing here. The only thing there is to get mad about is whether you're right or wrong. I do this for a living. I could care less if I'm right or wrong. I'm telling you what I see. I'm telling you what I feel. I'm telling you what it looks like to me in the moment. I told you guys all off season that Tommy Pham sucked and I didn't want him here, period. He started hitting at some point. Did I like continue to bash him as though he was still the worst player on the planet? No, it changed because he changed. It doesn't matter that I'm right. Talk about what is, not what you want. Development takes a long time and it's annoying. And if you don't have the patience gene, find another team. This team's always going to be doing this until something changes in Major League Baseball. This team's always going to be playing young players, and young players are always going to frustrate you in one way or another. And it's always going to take longer than you thought. I remember when Nick Gonzalez was drafted, people were putting up those faux lineups with him in it in 2022. And it was like mind blowing that you thought he was. Well, they're doing the same thing with Connor Griffin. Pump the brakes. No matter how urgent you think they should be, it shouldn't make them stupid. That's all I got today. Ask me anything tomorrow. Get your questions in. It'll be a good one. Let's go, Bucks.